guys, BBI here. I want to stop and say thanks for tuning in and checking out whatever the video is about that's about ready to come up next. If you could take a minute and hit subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoy what you've seen here, make sure to hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, let's get on with the show. Okay, guys, we're back. So, the note says here, please work your magic. Something is shorted out at the on-off switch. I'm not sure. The receive relay buzzed and the amp stopped. I would like the power wire upgraded to 8, 6, or 4 gauge. I'll let you be the judge. I want to be able to use it with a 100-watt radio. That's, or a single final. So he wants it to be either high or low drive. Well, I can put a pad on it. You know what I can do? I can put a huge pad on the AM switch. That would be one option. Remember I was talking in the last video, guys, about how you got the on, then you got preamp, then you got your AM, and then you got your delay. That would be sideband, by the way. Actually, how this is laid out is on, is high. You dial a watts medium, and that's low. Okay? These are different levels of attenuator. So you can add this with in conjunction to that. Just saying. So anyway, back to the topic at hand here. So, 100-watt radio or single. Less current draw would be a big plus. Well, that means that we're going to make it Class C. I've seen some of your videos on the 667 and like your concepts. I don't use sideband. We're going to make this thing Class C. So, if that will help eliminate the delay circuit, please feel free to do so. Okay. And then we flip this over and it says PS power leads were connected to a 2 farad cap. From that Anderson plug, let me know if the 2 farad, yes, as long as the Anderson plug is big enough to carry the load. So like 175 amp Anderson clip. So the big question is, does this guy want me to add an Anderson clip to the inside of his 667 or not? Or to the wires on the 667. By the way, you guys, there's 5 25 amp transistors inside this box. This little tiny wire will not cut it. But this thing is clean. Look at how clean this is on the inside. It's so shiny. Board's all shiny. Yeah, man, look at that. Ooh, shiny. Thing's pretty. Nothing's burned up. So what we'll do first is we're going to go in here. We're going to replace the power wire. We're going to go in and we're going to bypass the fuses over here. So we'll use this as an actual distribution bus. We're going to change out from this little tiny solid wire here. We're going to actually use 10 gauge, and we'll come down to over here. So we can eliminate all the loss of the trace and increase the amount of surface area for a little bit more amperage. Change this out. Then we're going to come in. There's this jumper that goes between the two boards. This jumper right here, this little black jumper, we're going to replace that with 10 gauge. That helps a bunch. But you got to remember, on the 667s, there's a lot of screws that go to the heat sink. And the heat sink is what carries most of the ground. So your weakest points of ground are going to be in between your transistors here and here. Okay? So if we do anything, we're going to add a jumper wire that goes from one of the nuts on the outside, like there's one here, there's one here. We'll add a jumper wire that goes to the inside. We're going to do that. That's going to help. Remember, as the part, if the voltage drops on the part, it pulls more current to compensate. So the more voltage that we can keep up on the inside of this box, the less amount of amperage it's going to pull. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to convert this to Class C, which means we're going to eliminate the need for the 2 sandstone resistors here. And we're going to bring these 2 transformers, input transformers, up to 100% of potential at ground, which will make the box pull about 25% less current. Seriously. Remember, we got to do the same thing over here on the driver pill, because it's also attached right there. Right there. So eliminate all of that also. I'm going to leave the delay well, let's see. Let me think about this, how I want to make it so that he can have this switched. Because there's really two ways we can go about doing it. We can take and we can bypass the driver's section completely and make it so that his 100 watt, let's say like Striker, runs these 4 transistors, which is safe, really safe, but really complex to do. We'd have to introduce a jumper here. So we'd need to bring a relay and probably put it like right here on the board. And so that the output power of this, we can either switch it with an auxiliary switch like over here in the back corner. Let me back this up a little bit. So either over here in the back corner, we can pull this, what would be the fan plug, which has never ever been wired up to anything. Pull the fan plug out and put a little switch over here. This is high and low. And we'll switch the output of here and the input, which is over here, off of this switch over here, and we could run it over a little piece of coax, and we can make it so that the relay, when the relay is latched up, the driver's section will be involved. We run that with the switch. Have the switch off, the relay is going to be in the relaxed position, then you can hit it with a 100 watt radio. That's one way. Now, that's kind of a safe and a dangerous thing. What if he's got this switch down and still manages to hit this thing with a 100 watt radio? It's going to take this 2290, which is a 60 watt final, does about 120 watts, and it only takes 12 watts of drive, and we're going to overdrive the bejesus out of it. Other option is we pull this resistor out and we change this out. We put 2 100 ohm resistors in here at 5 watts apiece, put a voltage divider in here at 50 ohms at 10 watts worth of reduction. And then that'll allow him, if he leaves his dead key low enough, all fully function of the radio or the amplifier. And then it doesn't matter what he puts into it. He puts a 30 watt radio in it, he's going to get 650 watts, 630 watts. Put a 100 watt radio in it, you're going to get 700 watts. But most of the input power from the 100 watt radio will be burned up in this resistor. It'll help protect the dial-a-watt too, just in case he accidentally has the button pushed in. So, first off, before we can do any of that jazz, let's figure out what's going on with the on-off switch and why the relay isn't working. Let me do my magic. I'll be back. Okay, so we're back. All the power wire upgrades have been done. Upgraded to power wire, gave you nice big grommets, good long leads so you can put them onto whatever you want to. Upgraded all the positive leads, added all the grounds like I talked about, converted this thing over to Class C to make it so that it can handle a little bit more current to the transistors and improve the efficiency just a little bit. So now we've moved on to why it won't turn on or do anything. So we're currently plugged in. Okay, we're hooked up over here. Now I did happen to notice that I only have 1, 2, 3 screws. I've seen what's happened to this before a couple times. So that's our power switch that we're manually operating. Well, down here, hold on, I think I got a visual aid. Hold on a second. Just 1 second, you guys. Let me walk over here and grab a scrap board out of something here, and let me walk back over here now. Bring the stool over here, and we're going to have a little coffee side conversation, just you and me. Okay, so this is the front side of a 667. Now, right on the front leading edge, let me grab a pointing device. Right here on the inside of the board, there's a trace that runs from this via pad, right, focus, you son of a bitch. This via pad right here runs across the board, and it pops out here, and it comes around, and this is the circuit that feeds the 12 volts to this whole bank and to the relay, okay? And where this via comes from, caught up on my wedding ring, this via is this trace right here on the board. The via comes around, crosses underneath this tape, comes around and goes back over here to the back of the board, passes up, goes through this capacitor, comes down, hits this trace, comes across, goes here, comes across, and comes out over here by the relay circuit over here. So what happens is somebody will put a screw through the side of the case, just like this, doop, 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 and it touches this pin, which is constantly hot. And it'll cause this trace to heat up, the one that goes across here, it'll heat up, and it usually breaks somewhere about right in here, right in between the two switches. So, now that we're armed with that level of knowledge, let's go take a look down here behind the switches and look at what's broke. You see the trace, how it's sticking up? See how it's all elevated off the phenolic? Because I got 12 volt at this solder via here, but I have no 12 volt over here on this trace. Look at that. Right there. Bent up and bowed right by the third switch and in between the second switch. Now, that's dangerous. We've got to remove that because this whole switch body here is ground. This is all grounded, and we don't want to put 12 volts on this rail. That's bad. Okay? So now what I got to do is I go in and I cut the trace with a razor knife right there at this joint. You see there's a trace joint right there, like right here. I got to cut it right on that edge, and then I'll take a piece of wire and I'll go from here to there. But I want you to look and see how well this lines up. Look, if I take this piece of tungsten, and I'm not going to make contact, but I'm just going to point at it, they line dead up with this power switch that's right here, dead up. The screw hole and this pin are in perfect alignment. Hence the reason you don't want to use too long of screws when you go to put your case on, because these things strip out real easy. Sometimes people use longer sheet metal screws to hold the lid on. So let me do that repair, and then we'll see what we get from there. But I'm pretty sure that's what caused our problem. Seen this before, and usually what that caused from is too long of a screw inserted on this side of the cabinet. So give me just a minute. Yeah, so the real pain in the ass comes when that trace burns on the bottom side. You have to disassemble 2/3 of the amplifier to get it up in there and get working. Okay, so we've modified and added our voltage divider and attenuator in there, which has given us a couple dBs of attenuation, but not enough that it's going to make that significant of a difference. Now, as I showed in the previous section of this video, that with 20 watts of drive, this thing was making about 630 watts worth of power. So, with our little voltage divider in there, everything works just as normal. Let's look at our peak power numbers. Lost about 25 peak watts. That's it. Input tune is remarkably flat now, and that's because it's seeing a true 50 ohm attenuation here. Okay? Now what that allows us to do, by knocking the top end out of it just a little bit, we can do something crazy like this now with no fear. Anybody who's anybody knows, you take a 2290 and you run like a 955 into it, a 100 watt radio, you're going to let the magic pixies clean out of this freaking thing. But not with enough attenuation. It gets bled off the ground and the voltage gets divided off in heat. So, putting a 90 watt radio in it, just turn the amp on. That's it. 667 that can take 100 watts of drive by adding 4 resistors and just a little bit of knowledge. Power wires completely upgraded, circuit completely upgraded, now runs in Class C, pulls way less amperage. Instead of about 100 amps, we're pulling about 60, 65 just by changing modes of operation of the final transistors. So That note, we're done. I think I covered everything in the note. The amplifier has been repaired. Everything is working. All the lights are working. All the functions are working. Variable knobs working. Everything's working. Here's the trace. I wanted to save this. This is where I cut it, and this is where I cut it. And here's the break. So it basically acted like a little fuse. And what we did is we took a piece of 22 gauge Teflon coat wire and went from that solder via underneath the switches over here to this pad. Pretty straightforward. Gentlemen, I'm done. I appreciate y'all tuning in to check out this little 667 mod. On to the next one. My friend, I appreciate you sending this up and giving me the opportunity to get it running for you. Simple, easy repair, not that big of a deal. It's going to get many years of life use now. And like I said, you can run a 35, 20, or 30, or 40 watt or a 100 watt radio, but nothing more than that. And let me be really clear. And a crystal, and I mean, I don't want there to be any confusion. Remember, this is coming from the guy that's got the soldering iron tattooed on the side of his arm. I'm telling you, 90 watt, 100 watt, peak power, period. Not 125, not 130, not 150. No, I don't need to go hook up my Connex 4400H, very high power radio and run it into this. It's designed to have like a striker, just tickle it, like 80, 90 watts. Anything more than that, you will have catastrophic failure. This 2290 will quit, or one of these other attenuators in here for this circuit will fail. If you run a 100 watt radio and you've got either one of these buttons depressed, it will fail. If you have the dial watt engaged and it's at halfway, the variable will burn up. On, preamp are the only two functions that you should be thinking about now. Even though these work, if you use a 100 watt radio, these have to be out. Remember, 100 watts max, not 125, not 130, not 140, and I don't want it. If you call me up and say, well, you think it'll take it, right? No, it won't. Run out, hit it with a striker, and be grateful that we've got a one driving 4 transistor amplifier that's not going to turn into refried doggy poop by doing that. You're getting the best of both worlds. Gentlemen, I gotta go. I got a couple more to do. And thank you guys, really honestly, and this is coming from the bottom of my heart, being the biggest mud duck in Idaho, that I don't get to be here doing all this cool stuff without all of you. And I mean that seriously. I say it at the end of every video, but it's the truth. If it isn't for your guys' projects, I would not be here. Call that number, follow along, click subscribe if this is the first time you've ever watched one of my videos. Just click subscribe. Guys, I gotta go. Appreciate every single one of you. Click.